Hello everybody, welcome to my latest recipe for Dishes by Deb. Today we're going to be making sourdough pizza. Now this is a recipe that I actually took a really long time to develop. I tried recipe after recipe to get that nice kind of, very airy light crust. So many of the ones I tried was basically like a piece of bread with pizza toppings on top. So it took a while, but I finally came up with the right combination of ingredients, and yeah, just want to share it with y'all because it is really it's delicious, and it's actually really quite easy to make too. So this is my starter. His name is Baby Doda. Yes, I know, it's a nerdy thing. So yeah, this is Baby Doda. I fed him last night and he thanked me by making a mess all over my kitchen. You can probably see it all spilling down the side, but he is very strong and very happy, so he's just bubbling away right now. So I'm going to use this to get the pizza dough started, and I'm going to walk you through step by step. Alright, so I just measured out a half a cup of Baby Doda, also known as my starter, and so I'm going to add this to the bowl. Alright, so now I'm going to add a cup of warm water. You don't want it to be hot water, you want it to be warm water. Hot water could actually kill the starter, so you want to just kind of be lukewarm, and yeah, so you want to add that into your starter mix. And now we're going to add 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. All right, now I'm just going to mix this together, get it like nice and combined, as much as you can combine oil and water. You want it to be really more just to break down the starter and get it kind of more liquefied before we start adding the other ingredients. All right, so now we're going to add the flour. So with the flour, you're going to want to add between 2½ cups to 2 2/3 cups. If you're new to this, you're going to want to add the 2 2/3 just to make it a little easier to work with. If you're more comfortable working with the dough, then you can add a little bit less. You can do the 2½. Again, it doesn't have to be like perfect measurements. Like this is not a perfect cup measurement, but it's really just as close as you can get. All right, so the flour has been added. I'm just going to stir it in a little bit. You should actually add it a little bit slower than I did, but it's not going to make a huge difference. Before it gets too mixed together, you're going to want to add also the salt, and then if you want to do the pizza spices, you can add that at this point as well. All right, so now I'm just adding the 2 teaspoons of salt in. All right, so I just added the pizza spice blend. This is the one I use. I like it. It kind of gives it a very, oh, sorry, bad focus. Yeah, so I like this one. It gives it a very, almost tastes like it comes from like an actual like pizza place. It's also very mild though too, so it's just a nice one to add in, add a little extra flavor. All right, so I just got this all mixed together. Now we're going to actually go get some cling wrap to cover it, and we're going to let it rest for 30 minutes. All right, so I got my dough all covered in the cling wrap, and now I'm going to go clean up some of the mess I made while making this. And 30 minutes from now, we will start our stretch and folds. So sorry if the video looks a little different here. I actually changed cameras so I can use both hands for this. So the 30 minutes has passed now for letting it rest. So now we're going to take off the cling wrap, and it's time for some stretch and folds. Now, one tip, if you want to prevent the dough from getting like stuck to your hands, it's helpful to get your hands a little bit damp before working with the dough. You don't want them soaking wet, but you want them a little bit damp. So just get a little bit of water on them, rub it in, and you're ready to go. All right, so for the stretch and folds, it really is just what it says, just stretch and fold. And you just stretch it and fold it. So I basically just do this 4 times, spinning it around. And when I'm done, try to get whatever stuck to me back onto the dough and put the cling wrap back on. And we're going to let it rest for another 30 minutes. You will notice as you work with the dough, each stretch and fold, it should get a lot easier to work with. So it's going to start off a lot more watery, but by the time you get to the last stretch and fold, it should be really, really easy to work with. It shouldn't get all stuck to your hands like this. So we'll check in for the next stretch and fold. All right, so it's been about 30 minutes. It doesn't need to be exact. You know, you really just want it to average about 30 minutes. So if you want to do it in 25 minutes, that's fine. But we're up to our second stretch and fold. Similar to the last time, we're going to really just take the dough and stretch it and then fold it. Turn it a quarter turn, do the same thing, stretch and fold it. But once again, just do about 4 of these, and then we're gonna cover it again and let it sit for another 30 minutes. All right, we are up to our last stretch and fold. This is number 4. And you'll see as I start working with the dough that is gonna be a lot harder to do the stretching, but also it will be a lot easier to work with. It's not gonna be as wet as when we first started. It's gonna be just a little bit easier to work with. It's gonna be a little bit smoother. All right, so now that we've done our final stretch and fold, we're going to cover it again. And now we're actually going to let it do a bulk ferment, which will be about 4 to 8 hours, depending on the temperature in your house. The warmer it is, the faster it will go. The colder it is, the slower it will go. It is pretty cold in my house right now, so I'm guessing this will probably be maybe 6 or 7 hours till this one is done. But yeah, once we get to the end of that, I will come back so you can see what it looks like when it's ready to go into the fridge for the cold ferment. So welcome back to day number 2 of making the pizza. So the dough has been in the fridge overnight, and now we're going to actually separate this big ball of dough into 3 smaller pieces of dough. So you'll see this, a lot of good bubbles in here. Look at all that, yeah. So got a happy dough here. So before we do this, I'm actually going to sprinkle a little bit of this rice flour on the counter. This will help prevent it from sticking. You know, also makes it a little easier to clean up afterwards. So just do a little bit of sprinkling before dumping the dough out. Now, for me, I find the best way to divide the dough is by using a bench scraper, just much easier to work with. I am going to use another tool to get the dough out of the bowl. All right, so when we're ready, we're just going to tip this over and scrape out the dough. Here we go. All right, that smells good. That smells good already. So now you have this nice ball of dough here, and just being on the rice flour makes it nice and easy to work with. Compared to yesterday where it was really sticky, like this time, nothing. It's really nice. So I like to kind of make this into a rectangle before I cut it, just so I can try to get it even. So yeah, this makes 3 really good size pizza crusts. So we're going to divide this into thirds. I like to, oopsies, that's probably a little too big. Yeah, okay. So just using the bench scraper, just slice the dough. And look it, now we have a little mini pizza ball. So actually 2 of these I'm going to put in the freezer. These freeze really well. And then the other one I'm going to leave out and let it get up to room temperature so it's easier to work with and easier to stretch out before we start making the pizza. So this one, about right there. All right. So, got my 2 doughs that are going to go into the freezer. And then this guy right here is what we are going to be making our pizza with. All right, so we got out our little pizza pan and then put a piece of parchment paper on top of it. This is just the regular unbleached parchment paper. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of olive oil on the parchment paper. Just, oops, okay, that was more than I intended. And then we're going to just brush it in with a towel. So, once that is done, we are going to now shape our pizza. So what I like to do is I like to kind of make it almost circular before placing it down. And one thing you want to kind of do is you want to try to avoid, you know, breaking all the bubbles. Like, you want to keep it nice and light and airy. So I'm just going to make it kind of circular before dropping it down on the paper. All right. So one thing you want to do is when you shape it, instead of like pushing it, you want to just gently pull it to get it into shape. So this is actually still a little chilly, so it might actually need to warm up a little bit more. Just nicely easing it into shape. You see, like, as you're stretching it out, it kind of bounces back, it springs back. The best thing to do is to actually let it rest for a little bit longer, get a little higher temperature, more up to room temperature, and then it should retain its shape a little bit easier. And one other thing you're going to want to do is, earlier on, is you want to get the oven preheated to 475 degrees. All right, so now that we have the pizza shaped, it is time to add the sauce on. So I'm using this pizza sauce. I really like this. Just really great flavors. And we're just gonna spread this on with a spoon. And I usually use about 1/3 of the jar. I find that about 1/3 of the jar is just enough, and it actually works out great because you may remember the dough actually makes enough for 3 pizzas. So everything here just gets divided by 3. So we're gonna just gently spoon the sauce over. You don't really want to push down. You want to make sure the bubbles stay nice and inflated. And you want to kind of just go up to the crust. You don't want to go over. Yeah, basically make it look like a regular pizza. Now, you're going to actually bake this without any other toppings at first. This is to help keep the crust from, or the dough from getting too watery. If you put the cheese and toppings on too early, they can actually help trap moisture, and that will lead to a soggy dough. So, by starting it with only the sauce, you're going to allow that moisture to escape as it starts cooking, and it will get to be nice and crispy the way I like it. All right, so I'm going to put this in the oven. It's going to cook for 11 minutes without any toppings. All right, time to take the pizza out of the oven. And now it is time to put on all of the toppings. So for today, I am just going to put cheese on here, but you can put really anything you want. Again, for cheese, I recommend trying to find a low moisture one, or getting a specific pizza one, which should be low moisture. Again, this is all to help keep the crust from getting soggy. So I like just to sprinkle the cheese on here. Nice layer. nice and coated. Got some bubbles in this one. All right, so this is gonna go back into the oven now for 5 to 6 minutes, and then it will be done. Woohoo! This was about 6 minutes, and here is the finished product.